Today, I want to share with you 5 leadership lessons that I think every leader should grasp before they turn 30. These lessons are applicable in both personal and professional life, and each lesson is condensed into a quote to make it easy to remember and apply as you serve the world and the people around you.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show to help you share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by Brady Shearer.
Today, we want to talk about leadership lessons. Alex, whether you are a church leader, as a pastor, or a volunteer, or you're just leading your family as a spouse, as a parent, these are applicable to you. You might be thinking, though, what if I'm older than 30? Well, I'm the type of person that fully believes in, never too late philosophy.
Sure.
No matter how old you are, you can learn these things. The only reason we used if you're before 30, we think you should learn these is that it's always easier to learn things when you're young.
Yes.
And just like investing, the earlier you start, the better. But to use an old quote, which is the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago, the second time to plant a tree is today.
Never heard that before.
Well, you've never heard that before?
Hey, at least I heard it before I was 30.
Wow, look at that. The other reason that we titled this video Before You're 30 is because it's a great headline, and also because I'm 28.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to be 30. This is like the first huge benchmark for when people are like, oh, no, I'm old.
Yeah, my body betrays me.
My body is definitely betraying me. And the first quote, the first leadership lesson on this list also has direct implications for those that are 30 because it says simply, for the first 30 years of your life, you make your habits. For the last 30 years of your life, your habits make you. This saying was reportedly a favorite of Steve Jobs, who sent it out to friends on invitations to his 30th birthday party. As for the origin of this quote, it's just one of those quotes that seems like we don't know who said it, but everyone seems to like it.
Yeah.
And the reason I like it so much is because I believe so deeply in the power of habit. Not the book by Charles Duhigg, though it is awesome and you should read it, but the power of habit in that your habits are what make you, and your habits are always going to overcome your motivation. We've all had those moments in our lives. For me, it's usually after I've consumed more food than a human should ever from a restaurant called Taco Bell, and you think, you know what? I'm going to make a change in my life. We're not going to let this happen again. You have this huge surge of motivation, but then 3 days later, you drive home and the bell is going ding dong, calling my name. It's going Brady, Gordita.
Can't say I've ever heard it.
Oh, wow. Someone high and mighty. Oh, yeah, I'm too good for the bell. Point being, habits are so much stronger than motivation.
Yes.
Motivation is temporary. Habits, once you build them, they become automatic. That's what's so great about a habit. For most of us, we don't have to build up motivation to brush our teeth at night.
Right.
It's like, I brush my teeth at night. That's
what I do.
Because you've built it into a habit where it becomes automatic, and your brain doesn't have to work overtime to get your body to follow, suit and do what you want it to do, because it has become this neurological pathway that you've gone down so many times. It's like walking through a forest. And the first time you walk through the forest, there were a bunch of, branches, and there were these, weeds everywhere, and it was hard. Every single step you took, a thorn hit your leg and it hurt and it cut you. But then the second time you walked down it, someone had walked before. And the third time, and then eventually you have this worn down path, and it becomes so easy to go down. Now, of course, this also works in the inverse for bad habits, but the point is that if you can build the right habits now, if you can commit to the processes when you're a young person, those habits that you've built are going to carry you for the rest of your life. I see this with my dog. I spent so much energy training my Labrador puppy, Ross, when we got him. I took him to a class and we did professional training. I did all the training at home, and I don't do as much training with him on a day-to-day basis now, but because I ingrained those in him when he was being socialized as a young puppy, he is now walking perfectly on the leash, even as a 6-year-old dog, and I don't ever have to talk to him. The second I stop when I'm walking Ross on the leash, he knows I will now sit until owner starts walking again. I don't have to say sit. I don't have to do anything. Today, I was responding to an angry YouTube comment. I stood on the sidewalk for 11 minutes while I was triggered and trying to respond. And he just sat there. Didn't move. Didn't get distracted. Other dogs walking by. He just sat the whole time because those habits have been ingrained in him when he was younger.
I'm no brain scientist, of course, and so I'm wondering this aloud. I wonder if it has to do with like willpower. So motivation is dependent on will, right? Like
Yes, absolutely.
But habits are not slaves to will. So like I get up early every morning. Like my alarm goes off at 5:50. Now this is interesting. The reason I do that is because I saw my dad in his 50s when I was growing up, becoming an adult, and I'm like, oh, he's a morning person. He's very productive in the morning. Every time I wake up, he's reading his Bible. I want to be like that. So when I was young, I force myself to create that habit. And if I tried to do that after I was 30 or even today, I'd have an impossible time. But so I'm glad that I formed that when I was young. But when my alarm goes off at 5:50 a.m., it's very few mornings that my will says, I want to get up and get out of this bed right now. But because it's a habit that's been ingrained in me, and you alluded to it, and like I'm saying, it probably has something to do with like, dendrite connections in your brain or whatever. But there's no element of will. I'm not getting out of bed because I'm motivated to or because I want to. It's because this is a habit. This is what I've taught myself to do. And that makes me capable of executing it day after day after day. So this is applicable to getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, but also like these more macro habits of just like healthy living, whether it's eating patterns or sleeping patterns or workout regimens or
financial patterns,
yeah,
how
or
you're spending
spiritual
money.
practice. You and your spouse, like what your habits are together. This has major implications on your entire life, and then eventually, once you have kids, the life of your kids. And so, if you can get in these rhythms before you have dependence, and when you're young, you can set yourself up for success in the future.
All of these habits, or so many of life's habits, are like compound interest with finances.
Yeah.
Where at first it feels like it's not making that much of a difference. But then 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, these are the habits that have brought you all the great things in life that only came from the smallest of gains every single day. For a specific example, we can talk about Pro Church Tools. One of the constants, if not the only constant throughout the entirety of our company, has been creating free content. So we're doing that right now with this podcast. We did it in 2013, I think, when I published my first ever YouTube video, when I wrote my first ever blog post on prochurchtools.com, when we did interviews with thought leaders within the church media space. All of it was based on content. And today we have a multi-million-dollar business that is highly profitable and is bringing all of us so many great things in life, and we're helping so many churches take the message of Jesus and share it through timely mediums, and we're doing that all because of the free content.
Yeah.
It became a habit. I, like you, woke up early in the morning and I wrote a blog post. I created a podcast. I wrote the outline for this video that we were going to record today. And it's not exactly exciting and fun when you're all alone by yourself in a cramped room at the beginning and you're just writing and 6 people will watch this video or 106 will download the podcast and you're grateful for anyone. But at the same time, you're like, is this really making a difference? But you commit to the habit and over time, it leads to, right now we have 54,000 or so subscribers on this YouTube channel. And every single year we get millions of podcast downloads and millions of views on our YouTube channel. And those things were only possible because of the smallest of gains at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's like that with sleep, with money, with eating, with working out, with so many of the things that matter in life. If you can figure out a way to build those habits when you're 20s, it's going to make such a big difference down the road.
Yeah.
Quote/leadership lesson number 2, surrender the need to be right. I actually came up with this quote. No.
I'm not going to correct you because I don't need to be right. I actually said this.
My mind has been blown. I can't ever recover from that. Yeah. This was a quote you shared with me for the first time. Let's move past that moment and talk about what this quote really means. Now, when I was growing up, my mom gave me the nickname Rule Boy.
That came from your mom?
From my mom. Mom was always a straight shooter.
Yeah.
And she called me Rule Boy. I was
going to call this the way I see it.
This is Rule Boy. And she's like, good Rule Boy. And not Rude Boy. Rule Boy. Yeah. And the reason was, I can't not sing, come on, rule. Right. I thrived within structure. And when rules were broken, I would become very visibly upset because there was a structure that life made sense by.
Right.
And when someone ventured beyond the structure, they were breaking the rules. Things crumbled. Everything fell apart. Yesterday, my wife and I are driving to the mall. And there's this very weird intersection that you have driven by your entire life. And basically, it's this left-hand turn. It's right by the Holiday Inn Express.
Okay.
So you take a left-hand turn.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
This intersection, it makes me want to die.
Yeah.
Because essentially, you turn into this giant lane. It's not one lane, it's like the size of 3. And the reason is because after you've made your left-hand turn and you go forward, 50 meters, another lane begins on your left.
Yeah.
And the way that the locals treat this intersection is that even if you have the advanced green, you should be letting the people on the other side of the intersection also turn right.
Right.
Because there's enough room for 2 cars to be turning into this new road at all times. And so even though when you're turning left, you should be turning into the right-hand lane because that is what the lines say,
Right.
all the locals treat it as you turn into this gaping nothingness, which eventually becomes the left-hand lane. So yesterday I'm making this turn, and I've been learning how to do this, and it kind of bothers me every single time because I'm like, you're all terrible.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm going to abide by the local.
Right.
Sometimes when you're driving, you got to break the rules.
Yeah.
Flow of traffic.
Yeah.
The problem yesterday was that there was a semi in front of me turning.
Sure.
And we've all seen semis start, 18-wheelers start from 0 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It takes forever.
Yeah.
So this person is taking up the entire advanced green. But of course, there's nothing they can do.
Right.
But what I'm doing is I'm as close behind them as I can be so that as many people can get through the intersection as possible. Because that's what you're supposed to do.
You're doing it for the sake of the people behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when you turn really slowly and your left-hand turn is on? Until you turn your wheel all the way back, the left-hand turn signal remains on.
Right.
And because we're turning at about, 3 miles an hour, I'm now in the lane I'm supposed to be in.
But your signal's still on.
Still says left. And I'm not in the lane I'm supposed to be in because the truck, of course, took up both lanes. So now I'm in the middle of this kind of floating atmosphere.
In crippling
And I'm
anxiety
like going,
at this point.
I thought everything was fine. I'm going like 3 miles an hour. I'm like waiting. I'm like, okay. And eventually the truck goes into the left lane because he's getting on the highway and I continue straight. At which point I hear the longest and loudest of beeps and horns behind me. And I look behind and there's this guy in a truck, shockingly. And he is losing his mind. And I'm like, I immediately go into rule mode. I'm like, well, I had the advanced green.
It's like, why don't we pull over and we'll talk this through?
Well, it gets worse. So I'm like, I had the advanced
boy.
green. So I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I know I turned into the lane that, people aren't really supposed to turn into, but that was because of the truck. Oh, but I wonder if he thought I was signaling left because my turn signal never turned off because we were turning at such a slow pace.
Right.
At which point, I take my sunglasses off to look behind, and he screams, in the most Canadian accent I've ever heard, "What, you don't have signals on that, boy? Learn to effing drive, you a-hole." At which point I collapse and melt into tears. Why am I telling you this story? Because it would have been an injustice to not tell the story because rules need to be followed. No,
Right, yeah,
because what happened was
vindicated.
my wife immediately seeing and knowing, this is a bad.
Right,
This is a bad
you've
moment
turned
for him.
all shades of fire engine red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she puts her hand on me. She says, "I'm sorry you had to go through that." And what I
so
should have
sweet.
done was just been like, "Hey, you know what? It was a misunderstanding. I don't know him. Him cursing at me is not that big of a deal."
I know exactly what you did.
I wasn't upset that I got yelled at. I was upset that there was no world in which I could have followed any laws that could have avoided that interaction.
Right.
I did everything right. I then went beyond what is right and did the things that are even less or more important than right.
Yeah.
And it still did not matter. And the point here is, of course, I should have been fine. I should have realized, hey, sometimes things happen. But because it felt like this grand injustice against the rules of the world.
Sure.
No one can be right here. I was right and I got yelled at. In his mind, he was right and he yelled.
What is right?
Why couldn't the freaking township just draw the lines in the way they're meant to be drawn?
Yeah.
But if I was able to remove myself from that very basic worldview and just say, sometimes things happen, I wouldn't have stewed for the next 20 minutes and my wife would have been happy. And
Yeah. And for you and I think you and I are wired in a very similar way. We both identify with the type 1 on the Enneagram, and so we're very rule oriented. We're pretty black and white. We love empirical data, and I kind of crossed this bridge, and this truth has honestly saved my life, surrendering the need to be right. And I know I'm free to share this because my wife, Rebecca, has given me permission to share it from the pulpit. But this changed everything for me in our dating relationship and then into our marriage when we would argue. Because I would go in with a very like rational perspective of who was right and who was wrong, and often it was me that was right. And when you're arguing, especially with a spouse, there are feelings involved. And what are feelings to me anyways? And so it's like, I'm not here for the feelings. I'm just here to like
Mom would have called you robot boy.
Yeah. So I'm not here for the feelings. I just want to know who's right and who's wrong. And I could never bear any fruit maintaining that perspective. It always ended worse than it began. And I had a hard time apologizing, and I felt stuck all the time. But when my aunt actually said this to me, just for 30 days, practice surrendering the need to be right. And so I did, and I did that without telling my wife. It changed everything for us, and it has changed my life forever, not just as a husband, but as a friend, as a coworker, as an employee, as a pastor, definitely as a pastor, but in conversation with anyone. If you're a human living in community with anyone, this principle can liberate you. Surrendering, especially people like us, surrendering the need to be right. It's not as important to be right as you think it is. And in your case, as illustrated in this story, maybe we're both right. Maybe there was no right.
There was no right.
Yeah. And so there's an opportunity for, when you surrender that need, there's an opportunity to be invited into empathy, into compassion, and that really breaks down a whole bunch of walls, a whole bunch of barriers. So yeah, it's not hyperbole to say that this has changed my life.
Leadership lesson / quote number 3. Once you settle into a story about your pain, you are extremely reluctant to challenge it. It's from an author, Johann Hari. And the reason this stood out to me so much, and this isn't like a famous quote, it was from a book called Lost Connections that I've begun reading by an author by that author. And the reason it stood out to me is because I made many mentions to my mom so far. We lost her in September last year after close to 5-year battle with cancer. Mm-hmm. And it's like the very first huge traumatic experience in my life. And we're now, I guess, 8 to 9 months or so removed from it. And I can still feel, not surprisingly, like the aftershock of such a huge traumatic moment. And it's the first that I've gone through. And so it's definitely foreign, unknown territory for me. And I can feel myself starting to formulate certain narratives about the way that I am, about the way that I'm acting, about the way that I feel because of what I've gone through. Mm-hmm. And that's the first type of limiting worldview, limiting perspective that I think I've ever experienced in my young life. And I'm truly privileged to say that. Mm-hmm. And it's like so weird. I'm feeling myself being like, oh man, if mom hadn't have I would have probably been in a better space. And that just speaks to the power of the narratives we tell ourselves, sure, which we've spoken about on these episodes before, the power of story, and that we're all just telling ourselves stories, and we're all the protagonist in the story, and that as long as we can make sense of the world around us, which we have to because it's mostly just chaos, we have to tell this story that allows us to get up and function in everyday life. We were sitting at one of our favorite restaurants not too recently, and I remember just breaking down in front of the group and being like, guys, we've all gone through our traumatic moments. You lost a sibling. I lost a parent. You went through this. You went through this. And we're all in our 20s. This is going to keep happening. Mm-hmm. Someone's going to get divorced. Someone's going to get cheated on. Someone's going to lose a spouse. Someone's going to lose a kid. And then it's going to happen again. And then again and again. And I think this is why our parents, they didn't have any friends. None of our parents seem to have friends. Right. They used to have friends, but then they had kids. And they never seem like they're happy, but they're not they don't seem super happy. When it never, and I'm just is this what happens? You just grow up and you become more isolated and you become more cynical and you just keep telling these stories because life just keeps punching you and punching you and punching you. And it's unrelenting. And even though you're I believe there's something better, that's how you get 50 and you're just well, at least we're going to go to heaven because this sure sucks.
Yeah.
Because story and perspective is everything.
Yeah. I was there for that conversation.
It was very good.
And
I've definitely not brought it up like 7 times.
And this is a challenge, and I think, I don't know, man. Like you said, we're young and we've experienced a little bit of pain, but not a whole lot of pain, and it seems the way of life that as you continue to live and continue to grow, you experience more pain, and that turns into cynicism because you craft your narrative around that pain, and it can turn into a vicious cycle. And we're not saying not to acknowledge the pain, right, and deal with it and grieve and all that stuff, but we're telling ourselves the narrative of ourselves every day, every waking moment that we're alive. And so this is like a perspective issue, right? It's an opportunity to acknowledge the pain, but not craft our story, not let that define us, so that we can keep growing into health, keep growing out of pain, and watch something. I mean, we believe in resurrection life. That's what this is all about, right? So watch something new come out of that tired soil, right? So this is the toughest one, I think, in my limited experience to kind of employ and put into practice, but maybe the most necessary.
And this is also where my faith in Christ became real in a way it had never had the chance to become real before, because, you say, you read the Bible, you sing the songs, there are words on a page. And then this was the first opportunity that I've had in my life where my faith in Christ came to this intersection, this crossroads with like the death that we know is a reality. And it was so beautiful in all of this like pain that is still existing, is like, every day me getting to say and believe, no, I believe that, like, life comes from this death, and I believe in this reconciliation, and I believe in a greater hope, and I believe in so much more. And that's where I keep having to tell myself, don't accept this story that's a lie. Make sure that you have this story that is the truth, and you just have to keep holding on to that. You have to keep retelling yourself that story, and don't let this one that you know is a lie become your truth, because that's what we do. And we just keep getting beaten up, and we had this thing that we knew we believed in at the beginning. Why are young people so much more idealistic than older people? Why are younger people so much more likely to be, like, on the progressive side of the political spectrum than the conservative side? Because when you're younger, you're more idealistic because life hasn't kicked you, beaten you up over and over again. But it really is just narrative. If you can keep believing in that story, and we have the greatest story, thankfully, you can overcome it.
And I think, at the risk of sounding hyper spiritual, I am a pastor, so this is my duty. I think Jesus spoke like directly to that when he said, you have to have faith like a child. You have to have that sense of almost like ignorant, innocent wonder that life is just holistically good. And as you grow, it will seem less good. It will become more hard. More people will die. But to always try and return to that childlike sense of wonder that there is hope. There is a father that's holding me and that I can depend on. And that's tough when you grow and become a father, right? But to maintain that childlike dependence on a heavenly father, that's almost counterintuitive. But Jesus spoke to it. He says, you must be like a child. You must restore your faith to that like a child to inherit the kingdom.
Quote / leadership lesson number 4, never miss twice.
This is, of course, a basketball reference.
James Clear, the book Atomic Habits.
Oh, not basketball.
No, sorry. I believe in Kawhi Leonard. His is never miss ever. Nice. Of course, we're pre-recording this. He's probably gonna at this point like miss the game-winning shot that would have won them the title. Right. Like I just spoke it into the. Oh, nice. Lord help me. I have this journal. And every day I track the habits that, going back to leadership lesson number 1, I think are the habits that are going to deliver the best compounding interest and returns in my lifetime. And so I have one that's, take a daily walk. Journal is one of them. Take your vitamins, a certain portion of veggies. There's sleep in there. There's like spiritual benchmarks.
Post to Instagram.
Relational benchmarks. Sorry. Gram benchmarks. And I used to look
benchmark.
Bench press.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Very nice. And I used to look at this journal, and it goes by months. So every day I write an X.
Okay.
And I'd want to see 30 out of 30 X's.
Sure.
But this journal is based on the book Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And in that book, one of the biggest takeaways that James Clear wants to enforce upon you is that the key is not perfection, but progress. We've heard that before. That could have been this quote as well.
Yeah.
The way he said it was so important to me, which is never miss twice. And what's baked into that quote is the reality that life happens. One day, you're not going to journal. One day, you won't be able to go for your walk. One day, you're going to only eat Taco Bell and not vegetables. And not because you inflicted it upon yourself,
Right.
but because sometimes it's inescapable.
Right.
There will be a day when Alex only eats Taco Bell. I'm praying it. It's going to happen.
That won't happen,
It
but
will happen.
It did have something similar did happen in California. We found ourselves in Barstow, California.
Lord help us.
And no comment on Barstow, but we found ourselves
Many comments on Barstow.
we found ourselves looking for somewhere to eat, and we couldn't find somewhere to eat, so we ate in a Subway that was also a liquor store.
As most Subways
They
are.
probably sold guns too, and that's very uncharacteristic for me.
Right.
But-
I mean, Subway is just not, it's not great. Like, Taco Bell we know is not great. Subway we like to think is somehow good.
Yeah,
No, it's not. It's like basically Taco Bell.
Especially that one. Yeah.
Would you like some whiskey on your taco on your sub? No, I would not.
Yeah.
Get me at a Barstow. Whew.
This one's good though, because if you're the kind of person like you or I, where you're looking for that mark of perfection, all 30 X's, and if you miss one, let's say on day 14, there would be a temptation for some people to say, "Oh well, this month's trash. I'll try again next month." And so then you spiral for 14 days, and then you have to dig yourself out of that spiral, which is work in and of itself. And so it's perfect. Life does happen, you know. Like I tried to go to the gym on Monday, and I didn't go, and I tried to go today, and I also didn't go. So I think I missed twice.
Never miss thrice.
You're right. So I'm gonna try again tomorrow. But like I don't have to reset. I don't have to wait till this month is over to reset. Like I can get back on the horse and get back to it.
And then the final quote leadership lesson is simply 2 words. Become unoffendable. Now, I don't know if unoffendable is a word. That might be 2.5 words. But this also comes from you.
Yeah, I think it's a word. This is all about posture. Yeah, heart posture, especially in tough conversations or confrontation. We run into a lot of this online because the internet is it's mostly a dumpster fire, but that posture of being unoffendable. Nothing you can say to me is going to offend me, so that when we engage in conversation, I enter disarmed. Regardless of what you've said to me, I will enter disarmed, and I don't have to do. Entering with that posture of being disarmed actually does a lot of work to disarm the other person. So a lot of times in these conversations, you'll enter, the other person is offended, right? They come in and they say something that is offensive. But if you choose not to be offended by that, to be unoffendable, your posture of being disarmed will in fact do work to disarm the other person and brings like, it's like this.
What leaders do.
Yeah, it's like this heavenly, like, I don't know, presence or like atmosphere. It really does kind of change the atmosphere of a lot of these tough conversations just based off your posture. And you are responsible for you. I wholeheartedly believe that. I don't think you have a responsibility for somebody else's attitude. If you can control your own, that will surely rub off on anyone you're in confrontation with. And it that doesn't just happen in person. We watch it happen on the internet, in the YouTube comments section, for goodness sakes. It happens almost every day.
I've made some progress here because when that man in the truck like cursed me out, I was not offended by that at all because I have internalized this enough to know, hey, he's got his perspective. Maybe he was having a bad day. He just wanted to get on the highway because he's late and I'm like holding him up, like no worries. But I don't always approach the YouTube comments that way because while the guy in the truck is distanced far enough from me that his opinion doesn't really matter, someone in the YouTube comments matters more because I know they like what I normally have to say. And they are probably in the same world of faith that I am.
Sure.
And it becomes even harder when it's your friend.
Yeah.
And it becomes even harder when it's your spouse. Because if there's anyone who's going to offend you, it's the person that you love and would die for. And so it becomes more difficult the closer you are to people. But at the same point, how many times have we seen people get upset by strangers?
Yeah.
So I think that's the first place to start. Like, it would take a lot for a random person to upset me because I'm like, I don't know you. You could yell at me.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're yelling at me. Maybe there's a justified reason. But it becomes a lot harder when it's the people closest to you.
For sure.
5 leadership lessons, 5 quotes. We'd love to hear what's one of the biggest leadership lessons that you've learned. Maybe you're older than 30 and we're missing something because we're not yet 30.
We're definitely
Please
missing something.
We miss a lot of things. So let us know in the YouTube comments, and that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. If you leave it in the YouTube comments, we'll see how we respond.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching this video. You made it to the end. It means the world to us. You know what else is great? If you would subscribe to this channel so you never miss another video.
And while you're here, why don't you go ahead, hit that thumbs up, let us know you like the video.
Thanks again.